this is Mr. Brass, and today I will be talking about the First Crusades. The events of the First Crusades were triggered by the concern Eastern Christians had over the Muslim conquest of the Christian Asia Minor. The Byzantine Christians lost in the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 helped start the Crusades as the Byzantine wanted Western Christians to help avenge the loss. Now, while there certainly was this response to Muslim conquest, it would be mistaken to say that there was this consistent conflict between Christians and Muslims during the entire time frame, and in fact the expansion had slowed a bit by the time the First Crusades happened. In fact, when you compare the conflicts during that time with really any of the other surrounding nations, you find the amount of conflict was average with its highs and lows at certain points, and it was the fact that Muslims had control over Jerusalem for such a long period and were expanding that really got Christians up in arms, and initially they seeked to see this as a defensive situation, but ended up using it also to extend their authority. So while you could say it was a bit defensive, they capitalized and made it an excuse to be aggressive. In 1184, when the Crusades had been done and battles had been taking place, it was noted by Muslim pilgrim Ibn Jabir that even during battles it wasn't uncommon to see Christians and Muslim travelers pass by the battlefield together and be allowed to trade and engage in business with one another over goods and services in their respective lands without being hampered at all. Historians have speculated that the commerce or business interactions are big reasons why the jihads were so lenient, as making them stricter would be bad economically. It wasn't until around 1186 when Saladin survived a serious illness that he began doing more holy wars of jihad. Before then he had only participated in 11 months of that, but he engaged in over 33 months of targeting Muslims for their land, showing he felt that was more of a thing he should be doing. During the First Crusades, Pope Urban II had fought hard to get the level of power he had at the time, and was still in the recovery period during his time. He had flirted with Pope Gregory VII's idea of sanctifying wars and building a papal army. The First Crusades began when the Pope sought to protect Christian Byzantium from attacking Muslims. Thomas Asbridge, in his book The Crusades, The Authoritative History of the War for the Holy Land, said the following regarding Pope Urban II's motivations. Urban recognized that developing the idea of an expedition to aid Byzantium offered a chance not only to defend Eastern Christendom and improve relations with the Greek Church, but also to reaffirm and expand Rome's authority and to harness and redirect the destructive velocity of Christians living in the Latin West. This grand scheme would be launched as a part of a broader campaign to extend the reach of the papal influence beyond the confines of Central Europe into Urban's birthplace and home. So while religion no doubt came into play, politics was also a factor. In protecting the Byzantium Empire in Constantinople, the Pope hoped to expand Rome's authority and gain Christian allies in the West. Just like the secular counterparts of today, in war situation, protection comes with a cost, and the Pope wasn't going to do these series of wars if he felt he wasn't going to get something out of it, and expanding the papacy is definitely one benefit he sought. Originally with his demonization sermons, the Pope only expected to get a couple thousand to join him, but he ended up getting over to 40 to 60,000 men. The Pope did show signs of corruption, as he did tell lies about the damage Islam was doing and dehumanized Muslims so he could rally up his army and encourage them to fight, and arguably you could say the Pope came to believe these lies. Now, I've been harping on the Pope, but Muslims weren't exactly innocent in this with their expansion and fighting in wars. The Abbasid dynasty, which came into place in 750 AD after a bloody coup which overthrew the previous Umayyad ruling dynasty, gradually led to Sunni and Shia strands of Islam separating, thus breaking them as the monolithic Islamic state they once were. So there was plenty of infighting going on. Once the Turks, aka Central Asia nomadic tribesmen, came into play in 1040, they became known for their warlike behavior, and they would howl like wolves and rain down arrows on their enemies, and would at times kill anyone, even the infants, the girls, and the old people. And later on, Turkish warlord Zengin became known for his brutality, and his taking over the western settlement of Odyssia made Christians do the Second Crusades. Zengin was a champion warrior, although Zengin would not be enough. as in 1099 with the siege of Jerusalem, the Christians won. The Christian Crusaders put them all to the sword and took Jerusalem. And this was arguably the most successful crusade of any of the Crusades that happened, which we'll be going over in later videos. And I'll explain more in more details then. And I could go on a whole video about him myself, and I will do so in the third installment, where I'll be tackling the Second Crusades and what Zangi and others participated in. Well, that is all for today. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise.